Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm working on the Cougar 2 Works Classic. So yeah, first thing I did was throw the wheels together because it's a good way to free up some space and it kind of gets you off to I think an exciting start. So these caps that I talked about in the last video, they just sort of press in. And yeah, that's what you end up with. The rears have tyre writing on both sides. It's not seating quite right, but the fronts only have tyre writing on one side, so that's probably the first thing just to look out for. And also I noticed the writing kind of gets a little bit overlapped by the rim itself, so yeah, that may influence your decision as to what way round you want to do them. So yeah, I'm not going to go step by step, but step one, we're sort of straight into the flying circlips. I just wanted to show you, well, I can't really show you, but just explain that I just clip them on with pliers, so against there, and then if this will focus, kind of against there, but just careful not to squash them. And if you've got them on right, then it'll be able to turn on the shaft there. If it doesn't turn, it's likely that it hasn't seated in that groove correctly, which it's going to struggle to show the groove. There's the groove. So yeah, let's I'll make a start and I'll come back when there's something else that I think I can add a fraction of value to. So I should have mentioned at the beginning, I'm in my kitchen table surrounded by washing and that because it's too cold to be downstairs. But yeah, just a first thing I've come across is that getting the circlips on the shaft that goes through the front suspension arms is quite tight. So the accessibility of the back ones is pretty bad. So I'd recommend you get the circlip on the back one first and then get the circlip onto the front. So guys, I've got step one complete. I'm not going to admit how long that took me because it was freaking ridiculous. What I figured out is getting the front ones on was quite difficult for me. What I had to do was to really squeeze the arm to take up all the slack in here in order to get that clip on. And the one that took me the most time, the clip kept going on really easily and coming off. And I thought that was because I wasn't getting in the groove. But when I took a closer look, what had happened is that the clip had flared out. So once I closed up the gap of the clip with the pliers, it went on fairly easily. So yeah, that was, I should have noticed that earlier because I was faffing around with that for a long time. So yeah, really frustrating first step, I gotta say. I'm not convinced that Schumacher actually clearanced these right. They're way too tight. I've never had that problem with Kyosho or others, or even other Schumacher kits. So anyhow, moving on. Step two completed with the hub upright thingies. Very easy step, circlips, but decent access and decent clearance. Some little ball ends. Yeah, no issues at all with that step. It literally took a minute. Just working on step three now. Apologies about the shadows. Just wanted to, before I assemble this step, I just wanted to point out that you need to make sure that this nut is fully seated in here, you should hear a push down on it and you should hear a sort of click noise. If you've pressed the what do you call that? If you push this into here well and then push this well into the bearing, then it should close up nice and tight like that. And then all you have to do is do the 4 screws alternatively, you know, like crisscross, and just do them nice and gradually until they seat, and don't tighten any more than that. Guys, I am calling a defeat on this. It's absolutely driven me up the wall. There's been fist slamming on the table, F-bombs galore, clips all over the frickin' living room, washers, must have picked up the washers 100 times. What I've done is I managed to get one side on, but I couldn't get the other, so now I'm reduced to just having no washers on both sides, so at least it's it's consistent. But it seems like where there's steps where you need to have a circlip on a washer, it's just hopeless. It's really hopeless. The tolerance is way too tight. So these are what the washers look like up close. So you can see they kind of have a little bit of a recess on them. I've tried them both ways. It doesn't seem to make a difference. They don't appear to be completely flat, or at least when you're trying to get the clip on, they kind of pivot around on the mount. So yeah, short of having, you know, 3 pairs of hands, just giving up on it. It's just really pissed me off, to be honest. And to get to this point in the kit has literally taken me 2 hours. It's ridiculous. So I'm gonna call it for tonight, and I'll hit it again in a couple of days. But yeah, not a good build experience, unfortunately. I didn't have this problem with the Cougar. Definitely don't have this problem with the Kyosho kits. It seems fine where you've got one that goes through, like, see the uprights here. These ones are easy, and I can only put it down to the fact that they don't have these awful washers that make things difficult. You know, they fall off, and they, like I said, they wobble around, and they take up all the clearance. And like, even if you're, you know, squeezing the part as hard as you can to take out any, you know, any gap in here, no, it's still just a nightmare. So yeah, I'm calling it for tonight. Hey guys, evening number 2. Again, apologies for the shadows. Lighting's not the best in here for videos, but yeah, we're up to step 5. Finally left those horrible C-clips behind that I keep banging on about, and yeah, just finished the first step of the steering. Only thing to note here is, unlike me, probably read this before you do that step, because if you do what I did, you do this step and then you read this, and then you have to go back and flip the washers around. So step 6 is just to throw some bearings and a spacer in there. It's on its side because otherwise they will just fall straight out. Oh boy, there's a lot going on in this step. This is step 7. What I would suggest, first thing you should observe is this arrow saying to put the steering sort of through here, sort of sandwich it. So the first step is to do these 2 screws here so that you've got the front suspension attached to the chassis. But make sure while you do that, using this part here, that you also have the steering threaded through it, and then that is going to have another screw go through there with your bearings and a couple of other little bits like this that have to face with that raised part up. And just from the previous step, I also threw another one of those on that I missed in the last bit. Guys, these screws here, apart from being ugly screws, like they're flathead and really easy to slip off them and scratch your chassis, which I've managed to avoid despite hitting it a couple of times. But yeah, you probably need to sort of hammer them through with the back of your screwdriver, because they're quite tight, and you really want the screws at least started so that you can sort of build up the bearing stack on top of it. So I've got these things here which they call a stepped washer. I've got one of those in each side, and I've got the first bearing, and then I plop the spacer, and then another bearing. It's gone down, hasn't it? Another bearing, and then you get the nut on top. So I'll just do that now. Small correction, before you put the nut on top, there's another one of these. And I think what they're trying to say in these instructions is that the bottom ones face up and the top ones face down. I'm pretty sure that's what this picture is trying to say. So yeah. Right guys, so that's that step completed. So we have it all tightened up, and you can sort of see that the steering works, which is good. The screws had to be perfectly lined up. These screws are ugly, really ugly. I mean, they look alright once they're fitted, but flathead, seriously? And I slipped off the screws and hit my chassis numerous times, but it seems to be really well powder coated, so I'm just going to nip these two up that are still a bit loose, and then that will be it for that step. Right, we're on step 8 now, so getting into some cool stuff now. So yeah, starting to get the front shock tower ready to go on. You're probably going to want to grab your Tamiya tool for this, because if you're like me, these aren't going to be deep enough. I went downstairs and grabbed one and came up, and then realised it didn't have a hole all the way through it, so I had to go down and grab another one that does. But yeah, so that's what you'll need. I don't know if it's a Tamiya one or one from the Kyosho kit, but doesn't seem like there's one in the Schumacher kit that I can find. This next step I'm just about to do, got to chuck these freaking wood screws through the bottom of the tower, and also have one of these, what they call a back spacer, either side of this little upright here. So that looks like great fun. Let's try that. So just before I nip it up, so I've got the wood screw through the front, a spacer at the back of the shock tower, then this little mounting piece that the screw goes through, and another spacer, and then whatever that's called. And you can see there's a gap, and by doing it up, it's gonna pull the whole thing together. So there we go, that's all nipped up. Just I would recommend just do it until it's tight, because until the screw stops, because you don't want to crush those little plastic washers. And that's what it looks like from the front. Check that out. That is starting to look rad. Love that big shock tower. Alright, onwards and upwards. Okay guys, step 9 is just to make up a couple of track rods. 2 of them, couple, that's what I said. Factory setting, 1 degree of toe out. There is a tool in the bag where is it? It points out somewhere that there's a tool in the bag. I don't bother because I'm tough. I just put it in my pliers and hold it, and then just twist the ends with my hand. But on saying that, I use grease, so that makes it way easy. Just get a bit of grease on the end of the thread, start threading it, and then just wipe off any excess, and they go on pretty easy, really. Now these are directional, so you've got a kind of beveled side here, and then you've got a really more sharper side. And if you look at the picture here, one sort of faces in and the other sort of faces out, so they both sort of point this direction. All mine go on the shelf, and really, I don't know, it's just me, but I like to have them the same. So what I will do is put them on so the bevel sides are both facing in. And I know it makes no sense. If you go to adjust them, you've got to remember to go opposite directions. You know, one side goes the opposite direction to the other, and that's not very intuitive, but these just go on the shelf, and it's just my thing. I mean, look at this. I've got to have those screws like lined up. I've got to have these screws lined up as best I can. So yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those things that just makes you feel good. So right, the next part of that step is to just make up the top ones exactly the same. So this is how I've done mine. I kind of struggle to tell from their pictures which way round they expect them to be, but I think I've done it different to what they want. But like I said, that's the way I like it. So they are both the sort of same idea each side, whereas they should be, as far as I can understand, left and right, but hey ho. Right, we're on to bag B, step 10. It's just to throw in a couple of servo mounts. So if I had sort of looked at the bag a bit closer, I probably wouldn't have opened them until I've got myself a servo, which I did not procure. So I'm going to skip the horn for now and do that later. Yeah, this is I've seen people on YouTube get this very wrong. It's very bizarre, but I'll show you in due course. So yeah, the next few steps are all about servo, so we're gonna skip that. And over the page, next step is making up the arm for the servo, but I'm going to skip that too because I've just made 4 of those and I've had enough of those. So we're on to what looks like the rear bulkhead, so exciting stuff. So guys, step 13. This is where I'm up to. Just make sure when you do these that you have both the holes on the inside. I'm actually have just sort of you know, buttoned it down because I think I'm going to go online and try and find myself some LE ones of these because I just think it deserves it, and it should match the chassis hopefully. But yeah, I'm gonna get online and order some stuff, so continuity errors will be in the next episode. Okay guys, so I've skipped a couple of steps, stuff to do with the rear suspension arms because I'm just waiting for some parts, but 15 was just to make up another couple of these rods, so I've done that. And then mounted the lovely carbon fibre rear shock tower and put the mounts on for the shocks. Now we're up to step 17, which is getting into the fun stuff. This is the part that I like anyway. Despite what the picture looks like there, you're going to need to put this gear onto the shaft before you do the bearings, or you'll find out, like I do, that they just fall out the other side. So that looks like that's one half done. So just prop it up somewhere where it's not going to fall over and fall to bits. And then step 18 is the next half, which is very similar. So slightly different, but very similar. I'm not going to film it. Guys, I just thought I would start at this end and build some of this stack. And it calls for a small grooved washer and a large grooved washer. It doesn't, I don't think it shows them here. These disc spring washers, I think, are the two just flat washers that I've already loaded on there. Could be wrong, but that's how it looks to me. So one of these is large and one of them is small. Maybe I'm missing something. They both look almost identical to me. So yeah, I'm not too sure about this step. I don't know which one's large and which one's small. So it's just going to be pot luck on that one, I think. Actually, the center of this one looks slightly larger. Yeah, maybe I'll consider. Oh, do they want the sort of larger looking hole? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Give me a sec to try and figure this out. Yeah, sorry guys, I don't really have an answer. The one on the left, to me, I don't know, it just feels like it might be the larger one, but sorry about the shadows. And sorry about the lack of focus. It just looks slightly larger somehow. I can't even sort of figure out why. So anyway, I'm going to go with the lefty largy. So that's what I end up with, guys. Please don't tell me in the comments that I've got them round the wrong way, because I don't want to pull it apart again. Alright, time to plop the two halves together and hope it connects. Alright, and there we have it. One complete diff. Just a bit of a tip, guys. I actually had to unscrew this and redo it a couple of times because I wasn't happy with this part. It was kind of sticking up a bit more than as you see it now. I think just the screw was kind of, pushing it out of place somehow and not starting on the thread right, or I don't know what, however, but kind of reminds me of some Tamiyas, this piece. It's just a piece of plastic that could probably be upgraded, but that's what the gap on mine looks like anyway, and that's the best I can get it. But first attempt it was sticking up prouder than that, but so I think I'm good that I've managed to get it mostly seated. So on to the next step. You thought we were moving on, but just another thing, I had to pull it apart and go back and check. I just noticed these two washers here are also mentioned down here. Now, I don't usually look at these diagrams too much because generally they just show how stuff should sit. But I did notice that these washers have a very slight curve, and they have to curve towards each other. So guys, on to step 19. This is starting to assemble the drive shafts. And these are roller drive shafts. They're really wacky, so you can see the exploded picture there. So you've got the shaft and a little O-ring in there, and then you've got this shaft here with a little plastic bit that goes through the O-ring, and a couple of like tiny little bearings that kind of sit on these two out drives. Looks like that without the little bearings on it. So yeah, crazy little setup. Okay, step 20. Sorry about the light, it's awful. Basically making up the other halves of these things. Right guys, the smaller O-rings go on these bits, and then there's bigger O-rings that go on these ends, and then there's another couple for later on as well for these taller ones. But the important thing here is to get these steps in the right order. So get your O-ring on here, get these together and the pin through, and then get the O-ring, it goes over top of the pin. If you put the O-ring on before the pin, you're going to have a hard job getting it out of that groove in order to put the bits together and pin it, so just be careful with that. So that's the first step together. Now the shafts there that we assembled, they just push into these ends here, and you just sort of line the hole up because it's going to come through here, and it's going to need pinning and an O-ring over top. If you're wondering how to line it up, that's what mine looks. So if the pin is there, mine looks like that. So side to side should be lined up with the where the pin goes through there. You probably just have to push in the back with a screwdriver to poke it through the top there. So now we just put a bit of moly grease in these guys here, and then they will push together. So the forks will go either side down the gaps there, you can see what I mean. So guys, once you've put those two halves together, I wasn't quite sure how they stayed together, but they do just push together. But see how you've got this slider bit, you need to close the slider up and then push this in, and you'll hear it. It takes quite a bit of force, but you'll hear it kind of pop as that O-ring sort of seats in the groove, and then they should be, you know, stay together in one piece. So I just didn't push them together because they were kind of resisting and I wasn't too sure. And I was going to move on and wait and see if it became clearer later, but no, it's just quite a bit of resistance on that O-ring, so give them a good push and they'll go together. So now on to 21A. So I've just put the nut in the top of these guys, and then it looks like we're going to have to hit the crucibles. So I really wanted to show you how to do these because people struggle with them, but might be a bit hard to show. I'd like to show it in real time, but I can't really. But let me make a start and show you in steps, which are basically going to be the same as this. Sorry. Wow, I'd forgotten what a pain on the finger these things are. So this is just like the illustration. This is the first step. Get it poking through that hole and push hard and wiggle until you get it just sitting on the sort of crest of it there. Then what we'll do is we'll get the tool and we'll push down on it with the tool until it snaps into the other hole. So this is kind of the next step. It's only really 3 steps, I reckon, but this is sort of the next step. You get the tool between the crucible, the I don't know what you call it, the UV, and the next step is just to sort of push down and also sort of lever outwards, just to pop it in. And you should get a nice loud satisfying click, and it is in. So yeah, they get real easy once you've done a few. The hardest part, I think, is just initially getting it sort of in this hole enough that it'll sit there by itself at this sort of stage, and then you're just basically railroading it in with the tool from there, giving it a bit of a tilt like that and pushing down, and it'll just snap in. So guys, 21B, after a bit of finger pain, this is the monstrosity that you end up with. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that step's over, because it's never fun. That's what one of my hands looks like. So yeah, move on. So step 22 looks pretty easy, just like a needle roller gear with a pin through it. Doesn't look too tricky. So only thing of note on here is the pin goes through the middle hole. It goes this side of the gear. There's a recess inside the gear that you'll see it goes into. And this guy here has a chamfer on the edge which needs to go this way towards the gear. So that's that step done. So step 23, now we're getting into some bling. Just a shame that we're dealing with old school screws, but just be careful, there's 3 different sized screws on this step. And I really want to upgrade the bearing cover and this adjuster thingy, whatever you call it. But they're just so damn expensive. I mean, 2 of these is like £20, and then this is very similar, and it's just like they're really not much involved in making these parts once you have a machine set up to crank them out. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just, maybe next pay I'll be able to afford them. So I just don't know. It's just a lot of money. It's a tiny bit of bling for a lot of money, but at the same time I really want them. So yeah, that's my predicament there. Step 24A sees us get out the banjo string and chuck these bits into the housing. I'm just gonna set these aside for now while I have a think about it. Right guys, so getting this step done here and dropping it into the case all together is a bit tricky. What I did was hold the sort of shafts there in the gear, and then hold this pin, put the belt round and drop them all in together, while being very careful that the bearing just holds that pin in place, because that pin, where is it? Step E. See that pin? It's tiny, and the only thing that stops it falling out every 2 seconds is that bearing D, which just sits on top of it. But yeah, you'll definitely want to sort of assemble it outside the case, and then yeah, using one hand to hold both parts, kind of lower it in and sort of jostle it around until it goes in. Right guys, I'm going to call it for now, so continuity error warning, but yeah, a lot of screws on these few steps. So firstly, I'll just say there's 4 screws in here despite the picture. If you look through, you'll be able to see you know, where the holes are in the metal. The other thing to say is that these top screws are long, so, and same on this side, and you can tell because they're the ones that go into the plastic, whereas the little stubby ones just go into the metal. And then you've got the 1, 2, 3 big screws on each side. So yeah, just lots of screws in this step. You'll see I have fitted the plastic parts for now, but I might come back and replace those when I'm feeling a bit flush. I've got a few screws and washers left over from that page. Hopefully there's something on the next page where those get used. I think looks like I've filled every hole I was asked to. That's what she said. But yeah, anyway, they might be used on this step. They might be spares. I've got a couple of 3 little washers as well. I didn't see any instructions to use washers anywhere unless I've been incredibly stupid and missed it. No, can't see it. And of course, just make sure you note the direction of this thingamajig, this tensioner thing. So yeah, that's it for now. When I cut back, I will be on to step 24B. And step 24B, I've just realized, is where I use the 3 screws and the 3 washers. So that answers that puzzle. So actually, I'm going to do that step now, and then I've emptied that bag and I've got nothing left over. Okay guys, I tell a lie. This is polycarbonate bits that look like they need cutting out and holes reaming through, so I'm not up for that tonight. So it's just a sort of motor shield thingy. So yeah, it's got to be cut out and all that. I'm not doing that tonight. It's getting on and I'm having a late dinner, so I'll be back with that step. Hey guys, some of you might have noticed this, but I made a bit of a bungle with the rear shock tower. So I was just starting to put the rear suspension arms on, and I didn't have enough, the rods weren't long enough, which I thought was really weird. So it turns out what happened is I had mounted the shock tower here, whereas it's supposed to be mounted up here. So yeah, that was a really dumb mistake. So that's the rear shock tower mounted where it's supposed to be mounted. Got the rear arms on, got some of these trick aluminium blocks here to mount the rear suspension. Just looks a lot better than the plastic, I think. Sorry about all the background there. Yeah, and also started on, excuse all the mess here. I'm trying to get some plastic off my fingers right now, but it's like magnetized to my fingers. I've cut out the shroud that goes around the motor here. It's got plastic on it, you know, like a body shell, which I would recommend peeling off straight away because it just gives you sort of rough edges and you can't really tell, you know, whether you've done a clean cut. I would unscrew this and cut the square out fairly tight and then put this back in. I tried to, initially thinking I was going to cut it wide and slip it over because it had already asked me to screw this in, but I think it would look nicer if it's tighter. You can see here where mine's not quite tight and it doesn't look good. It would be better if it looked like this side, you know, where it's nice and tight. There's also, I'm pretty sure there's a band that you cut off here, which I have done, but I didn't do it initially, and so this was hitting the outside, And in doing that a couple of times, I think I've split it through there. And also, it basically instructs you to cut out this oval and these two smaller ovals. So I had this one here perfect, but then in trying to ovalize, if you like, if that's a word, and trying to ovalize this one, of course I punched through, because look how small that, that gap is. So you're trying to do that with polycarbonate. It's pathetic. So anyway, what I did was just widen the whole thing out, as you can see there. And yeah, I've kind of failed on that. I mean, cutting body shell type stuff out is definitely not my strong point. I actually can't cut a straight line to save myself, I think, sometimes. But anyway, I haven't sanded this either. It's cut pretty good. I can't find my sandpaper, really annoying, but it's on now. It might come off when I upgrade these, if I do. I mean, obviously it'll have to come off to get to this one. But for now, it is what it is. Nothing's perfect. Don't beat yourselves up, guys. Although I beat myself up, but sometimes it's just not perfect. All right. So, step 25, building up the slipper. Yeah, there's some stuff going on here that I'm not sure I 100% understand. I'm not sure where this bolt comes from because it's not listed. But yeah, it looks like you need to ensure that the thrust race washer is seated correctly. One thing I forgot to mention on here as well. You might wonder what locates the pins on here, because the hole goes right through, and if you test fit it, the pin will just go straight through the hole. So it's actually the screws that will locate the pins. So you need to push the pins through until they sort of line up with the end of the block there, and then push the screw through, and then that'll locate it. If you've seen the ones in the kit, they have an end, so it can't go straight through. But these ones use the screw to locate them. Right, guys, just press the large OD thrust washer, which I think is this one. Like, I cannot I'm just sort of going on instinct, the difference, because I can't really tell it in any sort of discernible metric, but I've put it sort of this side. If I flip this one over, if I can get hold of it. So I've put it that side down, and I've used this bolt that was included. It's not on their sheet, but it is included. And a washer and the bolt, and just put it through here and just clamped it down, and it's just sort of pushed it into the middle there. I'm not really sure kind of why this whole sort of thing was required, but like I could have just pushed that in with a screwdriver. But anyhow, that's seated right in there now, so hopefully that's what the step is trying to explain. It's all a little bit confusing to me. So now I'm a little bit confused as to sort of why you would want that sort of beveled surface facing away from the bearings, because in my mind they run in that groove. It's all a bit odd. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, guys. Okay guys, I think I had it round the wrong way. So I've re-pressed it in with that sort of bearing running surface facing upwards. I'm pretty sure that's it. It was a little bit, I don't know, a little bit weird because it's very hard to tell from these pictures which way up the bearing's supposed to be. I mean, it feels kind of obvious now that that's the sort of groove, but at the time it didn't sort of feel obvious because I thought the groove was the groove. I've lost the other one. Where's it gone now? But I felt the groove was the part that was like locating it, you know, in the hub. So anyway, a part has ran away now just as I need it. But yeah, anyway, I think it's supposed to be like that, which would make sense because these little bearings need to run in those grooves. Guys, I'm a disaster. I was trying to find this to compare it to the other one, and it turns out I used that instead of the washer to do this and press it in. Oh man. Okay guys, so there's the slipper assembled. It's a little bit tricky to get that little plate to stay in this guy here. Basically I had to drop it in, get this over the shaft, and then just use the screwdriver just to push it so that it lines up, and then seat that gear on top of it. Also, I was wondering for quite a while, the little dowel or pin in here, I was wondering what that was for. But it actually locates with this here, so just make sure that locates properly and seats. This is what mine looks like, just to give you an idea. And if I, you know, turn this, my both my outdrives start turning, so presume I've done that right. So on to the next step. Guys, so next step starts out talking about belt tension. So these eccentrics can be adjusted for various tension, but I've just put them in the kit setting and mine's just going on the shelf, so I'm just going to skip that step. And the next step, which is kind of a big one, or a big milestone, is getting this whole shebang here mounted into the chassis. So looks like there's a lot of red lines here, a lot of screws going on, so yeah, it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be fiddly, but here we go. Okay guys, that's that step done. Pretty easy step really, actually easier than quite a few Kyosho kits where you have to get this sort of subframe onto the chassis. Just make sure you get these two in the right holes. I started out in those holes and started pressing against the carbon fiber, so not good. Hopefully I haven't ruined those screw holes. These ones actually, they recess a little bit, but I wouldn't do them up super tight. And then you have 4 screws in the bottom there, and then also a couple that mount the little bumper there. So step 27, we're going to do these uprights and hopefully get all this mess that's really annoying under control. Guys, this kit is killing me, man. I mean, shit, you've seen how I've struggled with figuring shit out and whatnot. Now I've just realized that I must have got distracted at some point and got my arms around the wrong way. So now I can't get the hubs on. So in order to get the arms off, it looks like I have to take the whole frickin' rear gearbox and all that shit out. So, oh my god. Right guys, I think these are possibly the smallest circlips known to man. They are nasty, so freaking small. There's the hub for comparison. So yeah, what was I gonna say? I forget now. I got one side done, so that's amaze balls. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But what I was gonna say was that like this video's turning into a freaking disaster because I'm making so many mistakes, but I think I've figured out the reason why I'm making so many mistakes. Like with the suspension arms, I think what happens is you carefully check that you've got the right parts. Just pause that Slayer before I get in trouble. So yeah, what I do, carefully make sure I've got all the right parts, they're around the right way and everything, and then I go to install them. I have to turn the, what I'm holding over or around or whatever. It all fucking falls apart. And then when I pick up all the bits and try and put it back together, I accidentally get a suspension arm around the wrong way or, what have you. And yeah, I think that's where it all goes wrong. I really do. Like, I was just moving the body and knocked these off the table and then spent the next 20 minutes trying to find a bearing. It's just it's driving me insane, guys. Insane. I swear the Cougar Classic was way more straightforward than this. Look at this, guys. This is getting a joke now. This is what happens when you're not paying attention. Frickin' that is like literally somehow got jammed through the suspension arm. I think I'm literally gonna have to undo it at the other end to get it free. Like, how the fuck does this even happen? I mean, it's insane. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Right guys, I'm gonna end another night. I think this is like my third evening on this. Got it to the point where, front and rear suspension, gearbox and everything is on. Everything I think is pretty good. Like, hopefully I'm not going to find any other surprises. Yeah, I think everything's good. Next step is the suspension, which I'm definitely not going to start tonight. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit. But for now, beer time. Guys, I've just, my servo has arrived, so I've just taken a few steps backwards to set up the servo. It comes with two different sort of threaded horns, so make sure you pick the right one for your servo. This little thing here, I've seen people do all sorts of strange things with this, but like the instructions say, you push it through like this, and then what you do is essentially get some pliers and grab the round bit, and while ensuring these two ends stay through there, you twist it around and down onto this raised bit here. And then what I would recommend is that you get it screwed on, get the screw through it and get it screwed onto your servo as soon as possible, because it likes to sort of ping off. So I'll show you what it looks like. I can't really sort of film myself doing it, unfortunately, but I'll show you what it looks like. So guys, there it is, twisted round. It's not easy, honestly. It probably took me maybe 10 shots to do that, and I've done it before. Just when you think you're, sort of flogging a dead horse, the spring will kind of flex, and it will sort of double over on itself, but just don't let go of it while it's like this, because it's under a lot of tension. So I'm going to get it straight onto the servo now. So that's it, mounted on the servo. I'll try and attempt to show you how it actually works as a servo saver. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it one-handed, but you will see there's some flex, and well, maybe not. I probably don't have the strength to do it, but if I was to use two hands, you would see that this sort of flexes this way and flexes that way. But it is under quite a lot of attention. It's under quite a lot of tension, but it does perform the job of a servo saver as it should. Guys, just watch the direction of the servo too. I got it around the wrong way, so it's I think it goes this way around. You'll soon see if the length of the arm is completely whack. Okay guys, that's what the steering looks like all hooked up. These lower bolts are a bit hard to get to once you've secured the servo, but you know, short of being able to perfectly guess it, you kind of have to do those ones up last, unless you can perfectly guess the width of the servo. But I can't get the tool in there, so I had to use an open-ended spanner from my toolkit, like my proper car toolkit, just a small crescent to hold those bolts while I tighten them down from the other side. But yeah. So guys, onto the shock absorbers now. This kit comes with these pretty trick vary shocks, where you can sort of adjust how much oil flows through the shocks by, you know, rotating these guys here. I'm still sort of in a dilemma as to whether I do that, or there is the option just to use the standard selection off the tree there and just build them just to one setting. Yeah, I just have to have a bit of a think about that. So guys, step 28, I've got everything laid out. The instructions again are a bit weird on this one, so B4 O-ring times 4. I believe are these foam things here, where there's 6 of them, because you require 2 on each of these little spindles. And then the orange ones aren't sort of even mentioned. Well, actually, I tell a lie. These ones are mentioned, but you've got 8, not 4, and there's 2 different sizes. But then when you look at the assembly here, you can see the difference between the small and the large, and then the big black band ones go on the top there. Yeah. So guys, stuff is getting a bit greasy and messy here. So these are the little spindles assembled with the foams on them. So basically what you're doing is get the O-rings to the tops, make sure they're seated nicely in there. Then you drop in a small O-ring into here, just make sure it seats nicely in there. Then one of the spacers that comes off the spruce here, along with the caps, and what I'm calling the spindles. So then after the spacer, you have a big fat O-ring, and then you push the spindle in and it kind of clicks into place. It says only to oil the big washer, but I'm doing both of them, not washer, O-ring. So there they are assembled, guys. I'm just using a screwdriver throughout just to make sure every all those O-rings and that just seat nicely inside there before clipping the end in. So now we're on to step 29. And just a note, guys, you'll need to get your kit oil out here because it wants you to use the correct weight that you're putting in the shock on the relevant shock shaft. So guys, my as far as these Very Click shocks go, my mind's pretty much been made up by how small these holes are and how shit my eyesight is. So looking through these to try and determine whether I'm at 3 or 4 holes or whatever, it just looks too hard for me. I'm just gonna go to the spruce and I'm just going to take the 4s off the spruce and use those. So that is the softest setting, by the way. So guys, just in case you didn't notice immediately from the picture, but these shafts are different lengths. So 550 oil on the shorter ones and 400 on the longer. So obviously front and rear. So this is what the shafts look like with the little ends on them. I'm pretty sure I remember from the Cougar Classic that it's not going to focus, but the recessed side goes down, so the clip sits in the recess on the underside. That's how I remember it anyway. I can't be bothered to check it, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So guys, on to step 30A now, where it's going to get real messy. This is what the shafts look like. I'll probably cut back when this is done because yeah, it's going to get a bit willy. Guys, you're going to have to get your digital calipers out for the next step because I don't know if you're like me, but whenever I make up rod ends I just use the scale pictures on the page, but this one calls for 24 on the front shock and 30mm on the rear. I don't know what it is with these calipers, but every time I get them out they're flat, and so every time I end up putting a new battery in, and then by the time I next come to use them they're flat. So I'm just going to not put a new battery in this time. But yeah, reading off the calipers is obviously nowhere near as convenient as actually getting a digital readout. So anyway, time to put the shocks together. Now I might have jumped ahead on this step doing these, but they are showing up here, and so I didn't want to, you know, like assemble the shocks and then find it would have been easier to do them unassembled. I don't think it will be, but anyway, I didn't want to take that risk. I also wanted to point out, I kind of, looking at the picture of this car online, I just assumed this was lovely anodized aluminium, but I'm not sure what it is. It may just be plastic. I'm really not too sure. Let me know in the comments if you know. If I had a magnet, I would test it. I don't think I've got anything magnetic that I know for sure is magnetic. So yeah, but let me know if you know. These tops are definitely plastic, so I wouldn't be surprised if the bodies are too. So guys, if you've assembled any shock absorbers of any type before, you should have no problems with these. I just like to make sure that when you push them all the way in and take your finger off, they only just come back out a fraction. If you find that they're coming out a long way, I tend to repeat the process. The back ones are really sweet. I think that first front that I showed you is by far the worst, but I've bled it a couple of times now and it's not doing any difference, so I'm going to call it good and move on to getting some springs and the shock spacers, which there seems to be a lot of installed. So that's the shocks all assembled. Yeah, they feel pretty good. I would say that they've got quite a surprising amount of tension for the sort of softest setting possible. I'll see what they're like when they're on the car. I don't really like the look of these big spacers, but you're going to need to put them on if you want to keep the spring captive. So that's kind of just how it goes. It's just the design of them. These shocks come with these neat little covers that cover up my bolts that I like to line up. Okay, so very easy step there, attaching the shocks. Nothing to write home about there. Only thing of note is that these little plastic washers have the curve facing outwards, or towards the nut. So guys, I jumped ahead a little bit and put the wheels on. There's still some just some little steps to go, like the rear wing and this battery mount, but I'm not going to cover that. It's hardly worth covering. I don't think my suspension camber is quite right. I think I need to shorten these a little, because as you can see, I've practically got positive camber unless the suspension's pressed. So yeah, I'll sort that. That's an easy fix. The other thing is, I didn't notice in the instructions that the angle of the servo saver should have the ball here sort of at the 90 degrees position. So I'm just going to whip that off and tilt it back a bit, because my steering was all weird. So guys, it's another day, and this is me doing a bit of a wrap up. So yeah, the car's mostly there. I'm going to do a separate video with the body, because it's going to take me a while to get around to that. It's pretty much done. The only thing I haven't done is the wing mount. The only reason I haven't done that is I don't want to open another bag and potentially lose the wing O-rings or something. So I thought it was best just to stop at that step, and I've got to come back and do the motor as well. Not really sure what motor to put in this car, guys, so give me a shout if you have any ideas. I'm not sure what was sort of period correct for these cars, and there's sort of a lack of Schumacher branded motors out there. So yeah, so anyway, it's all done. This is the sort of suspension stiffness. I think I might have mentioned, but I kind of shored up the front. The camber was all goofy when I finished the kit. Whereas you see on the Classic, the Cougar Classic, it's it's got negative, whereas this thing was way positive. So I sorted that out. The back is also goofy, but I want to wait till I've got the weight of a motor in there, because that will go some way to sorting it out. So I'll adjust it after that. The shock bodies, yes, they're plastic, whereas on the Classic they're alloy. Yeah, so sort of summing up, I mean, I just realized how dusty this Cougar's got. But yeah, summing up, what are my sort of thoughts on the kit? Well, I've got really mixed feelings on this one, guys. Sometimes at some stages I was enjoying it, and at other stages I thought it was going to put me in a frickin' lunatic asylum. I really did. So yeah, I mean, Some of the steps in the instructions I didn't think were great, which also goes for the Classic. But particularly on the Cougar 2, there was some steps where parts were supposed to be different, but I literally could not tell the difference between them. And yeah, so I still don't know if I fitted them correctly. The other thing is the way things go together. I felt that the Classic goes together easier. There was some steps on the I'm just trying to see where those washers were. There's some steps on the Cougar 2 that I literally parts just did not fit. And so kind of disappointing, whereas I never had that problem on the Cougar. So the example I want to show you that I was just trying to look for a second ago is the bottom washer there, on that pin that goes through the upright. On the Cougar 2, I've just ended up without the washer because there was just no way I could get it on, and that's what she said. But yeah, I actually had no problems doing that with the Cougar Classic. So yeah, it's just kind of like the parts, just the tolerances, like I said at the time, were just too tight, and it just wouldn't go together no matter how much I tried to squash the part. And I don't have 3 hands, so what are you supposed to do? But yeah, things I did like. One thing I do like is the length of these screws is nice. So see that? The top shock mounts. Whereas on the Cougar you've got, okay, the back's fine, but look at the fronts. But yeah, that actually brings me to screws. I wanted to talk about screws as well. The Cougar Classic has a lot nicer screw set, but on saying that, this isn't like a Kyosho re-release where you get beautiful hex hardware. This is lots of old school screws and whatnot. I think the only hex in the whole kit is probably for the wheels, if I recall. So yeah, but all gripes aside, it's a typical Schumacher product. When it's all finished and put together, it is actually really nice. So it does work really well. The suspension feels nice. I think it feels nicer than the Cougar Classic, which I don't know if it's just my setup, but the suspension probably needs more tension on it, but it's quite sort of slow and it squeaks, and it's hard. It's quite hard. Yeah, whereas this one is just lush, but then I did use the softest setting there is, which is nowhere near as soft as Kyosho's softest setting, which is just like really soft. But yeah, it's close. I do think, yeah, if you're racing on dirt, maybe you would want it soft like this, but for the shelf I like the suspension quite soft because it's just easier for me to go around all my cars and work the suspension and rotate the tires. It's just makes that sort of maintenance easier. I still think I'd quite like to get the spikes, the pin spikes, no, not the pin spikes, I can never remember what they're called, but the big spikes on the back of this one as well. I'm just not really feeling the pin spikes, and then they would match the front. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to sign off. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe if you want to. Sorry, this video is going to win no awards, but yeah, you guys know how I roll. See you on the next one.